name is Cynthia Wood, and as interim director of the Winter Park Library, I want to welcome you to the Winter Park Public Library, your public library. The Winter Park Library is the library of the 21st century, but is no longer a repository of books. It is an educational institution that is free to the public of our community. And as such, we embrace civic engagement, civil discourse, and debate. So we feel that it is very fitting today that the Winter Park Public Library hosts this debate for the Winter Park Commissioners. So on behalf of the staff and the Board of Directors of the Winter Park Public Library, I want to say welcome and let the debates begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol Fogelsong, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Orange County. I will be the moderator for this debate. The League of Women Voters is a trusted organization that does the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we do take positions on issues that affect our local communities, as well as state and even some national positions. If you're interested in learning more about the League, guess what? Go to the website, www.LWVOC, League of Women Voters of Orange County.org. Now, here's the rules. If a cell phone rings while we're here or buzz, you owe $5 to the League of Women Voters of Orange County.
I give it to the library.
Okay? And we may make it to the library, but that's our general rule for debates, okay? So take a minute, put it to stun or be quiet. No ringing, no bells, no timers, like that. This is a candidate forum for the Winter Park City Commission. We will be following the League of Women Voters debate format. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute closing statement. They will have 2 minutes to respond to my first 3 questions. And then 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 seconds, because you guys are turning in a lot of questions, to answer from the audience. And I'm going to ask you please to hold your applause until the end, because there are many here who favor one person or another, and if there's an applause routinely, we're going to have less time for questions and answers. We will give them all a rousing round of applause at the end. A timekeeper in the front row, who is also from the League of Women Voters, this is Lee, will keep track of the time, raising cards when there is 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, and then she's putting up the dreaded stop. You've got to stop when she puts up the red card. No fair going over. You've seen some index cards passed out, and we are collecting your written questions, and they're being passed forward to us. Please keep the questions to the issues and not personalities. Please also make your question legible so I can read it, because if we can't read it, we can't ask it. There will also be times when we don't ask your specific question, because we frequently get questions that are on the same topic or about the same issues. And so we try and meld them together into one question rather than repeating the questions. The candidates are seated on the stage and have drawn cards to determine who gives the first opening statement and who gives the last closing statement. And we will now begin with the first opening statement, and Barbara Chandler drew the high card for that. So she has 2 minutes.
Good day, everyone. My name is Barbara Chandler, and I would like to thank the Winter Park Public Library, along with the League of Women Voters, for having this debate, and I am happy to be here. I was born in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and my family moved here in 1978. I relocated to Winter Park in 2007, my 3 sons and I. And I quickly became actively involved in the community. So today I feel right at home at the library, as this was one of my first places that my sons and I would frequent. I went on to serve on the Winter Park Public Library Board, Keep Winter Park Beautiful, and I became a member of the Winter Park Rotary Club, and currently I serve on the board of directors of the Winter Park Sidewalk Art Festival. I truly feel connected with this community, and it would be an honor to become your first African American commissioner in 125 years. A bit about me: a mother of 3 sons, a grandmother of 4. My 2 oldest sons served in the United States Marines. My youngest son, Ashton, graduated from Winter Park High School, and he also played on the championship team, basketball team in 2010. Since then, he's went on to the University of South Florida and graduated. We felt warmly received by the community, and I see this campaign as a way of giving back to Winter Park. I'm running because I believe that this community would be better served if stronger connection to City Hall. Today, I'm going to talk about specific solutions I'm proposing to increase access and improve representation for all our neighborhoods in Winter Park. Thank you.
Mr. Weldon, you're next.
Yes, good morning. My commitment to Winter Park began when Fran and I moved here in 1989 and we started our family here. Fran has been our neighborhood watch coordinator for 25 years. I have served on city boards since 2008, serving on the Code Enforcement Board, the Tree Preservation Board, and the Planning and Zoning Board, all under 3 different mayors, before being elected in 2016 to serve as your commissioner. I have an MBA from Duke University. I was the chief financial officer and vice president of a Johnson & Johnson operating company. I ended up here because I was recruited by a venture capital firm to be the CEO and president of a startup in Winter Park. I later earned the Chartered Financial Analyst designation and served clients as an investment advisor for some 20 years before retiring. I have proven my commitment to protecting our oasis called Winter Park, and I have proven I get results that matter to you. I work to leverage the special qualities of Winter Park to add value for all of us, and I urge you to go to votepeteweldon.com to see some of the things that I've been involved with. I apply my experience to look behind the facade of an issue, to look behind the politics of an issue, and to understand and improve our foundation, our character, and our financial strength. And I believe I've tangibly contributed to those things during my service to the city. My top priority going forward is to continue to get results that matter to Winter Park residents, to build on our many successes, and to prioritize things like technology investments, arts and culture, and responsible financial management. My initiatives include traffic management with FDOT. I want to move the fiber optic communications project forward. I want to use technology to improve crime deterrence and prevention. I want to improve our recently acquired green space on Howell Branch Road for our use, and I want to increase the pace of electric undergrounding. I look forward to our discussions today. Thank you.
Mr. Weaver.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here. I'm Todd Weaver. I'm a 22-year resident of Winter Park. Most of you thought you were coming to a debate today, but actually this is a job interview with 3 candidates. I have a unique skill set and background that makes me the best candidate for this job. I'm a UCF graduate, an aerospace and mechanical engineer. I'm an inventor with multiple patents in aerospace and infrastructure. I have a general contractor's license, and I was a former developer. I founded 2 successful and ongoing Winter Park-based companies. I served 6 years on the Lakes and Waterways Board for Winter Park. Now that I've told you who I am, let me tell you who I am not. I am not a socialist. I have never given anything to George Soros or any PAC. Act Blue is a PayPal clone connecting donors and candidates. I'm an independent thinker, and I've also been a 30-year registered independent voter. I'm a lifelong capitalist and successful businessman, and I am against the extremes of both national parties. I have the endorsements of our 2 best mayors and nearly all of our former commissioners. I am running for seat 4 because I'm passionate about our city, our citizens, and the quality of life that we enjoy here in Winter Park. We're facing significant challenges regarding growth, traffic, and development. I know my background and experience will enable me to make a positive difference in the leadership of your city government. With your continued support and input, together we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for keeping your times right. It just makes it a little tougher on the timer. Who's going to reset our timer? We're going to go to the first moderator question. You will each have 2 minutes to answer these questions. And this time I'm going to start with Mr. Weaver on the far end. You will each get 2 minutes to answer. Please tell us about 2 opportunities or problems that you foresee and explain how you would approach them to improve and maintain the quality of life in Winter Park.
Can I mention traffic twice? But seriously, our traffic has become an issue. And as you know, I've been a long-time proponent of Sunrail and other forms of alternate transportation. I'm on the League of Women Voters Transportation Committee, and with that connection, we're connecting with all the players, not only locally, but regionally and statewide, to come up with a coherent traffic plan. Right now, we have a lot of pressure on our commission from developers, both local and regional. That's not part of the transportation solution, that's part of the problem. And it's high time that we work together with developers and get some concurrency back with our infrastructure, our traffic model, our schools, and those things that are affecting our quality of life. The second thing I would say is transparency. Right now we have a push by certain members of the commission to redevelop Orange Avenue, and that's being done without any public input. The city is only working with the major landholders on that street, and I think it's time that we had some open government, and I will bring that to the commission.
Okay, Barbara Chandler next.
I'm sorry, if you could repeat the question, please.
Sure. Please tell us about 2 opportunities or problems that you foresee and explain how you would approach them to improve and maintain the quality of life in Winter Park.
Thank you so much. 2 problems or 2 opportunities. As I stated before in my opening, I am definitely speaking a different conversation. One of the conversations or opportunities I would like to speak about is home rule for Winter Park neighborhoods. And basically, where we're going, or where I'm going, is Winter Parkers get better representation, neighborhood by neighborhood, when citizens of each Winter Park's 5 voting precincts can elect their own commissioners. It would be single-member district voting. When different parts of the city are given the right to vote for their own commissioner, or to vote for someone who understands their needs, it's called single-member district voting. Our neighbor next door, the city of Orlando, votes this way. This alternative is at-large voting. The alternative is at-large voting. At-large voting is a system that we have in Winter Park, and I think it's time for a change, for more representation of home rule government in the city. So that's one that I would like to present. The other one would be to help leaders lead. Empower more effective, productive leadership by adding expert research and analysis to the tools we provide Winter Park Commission. Elected leaders at virtually all levels of government employ staff with the expertise required to help vet and advance proposals and solutions. Without this resource, daily governance at the state and federal level would grind to a halt. Even with these resources, some elected officials are too dependent on industry lobbyists to create proposals and legislation, which are too often riddled and buried. Loopholes and special favors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walden.
Yes, by any measure, in terms of problems facing the city, it's really opportunities. By any measure, Winter Park is the best it's ever been. We've invested in our parks. We've purchased 55 acres of new green space that's larger than the golf course and Central Park combined. We've renovated the tennis center. We have new paths on Denning and along the railroad right-of-way between New England and Fairbanks. We've invested in Mead Garden and Ward Park and Showalter Field renovations. The golf course has been renovated. The golf course parking lot has been expanded, bricked, landscaping. We signed a contract that will get 7% of our electric power from large-scale solar fields. We're partnering with FDOT to implement quiet zones in Winter Park that will significantly reduce train horns. At the same time, we've been able to increase unrestricted cash reserves by over 70% in 4 years, providing for the next hurricane. Our challenge is to keep the good news coming. The most immediate goals are to complete electric undergrounding and complete the library and event center project to the high standards we all expect of Winter Park. We recently approved a new wholesale power contract that will add over $2 million to our annual cash flow that will be available to accelerate undergrounding beginning January 1 next year, while keeping the electric rates constant. The city is pursuing third-party funding to be able to implement some or all of the library and event center add-ons recommended by the architects. Our financial strength represents both our opportunities and our challenges. I believe my financial and investment background is a great strength, providing assurance to our residents that their money will be invested wisely. I believe the results of my service to the city support this conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, I'm going to ask Mr. Wolin to answer first, Mr. Weaver second, and Ms. Chandler third. And that question is, the Winter Park Planned Library and Event Center project is one of the largest public works projects in the city's history. Is this project, with a stated budget of $30 million, progressing with the design, construction controls, problem-solving solutions, and transparency that meet your approval? Is there anything which you would have done differently?
Yes, I'm happy to address this. One candidate, Mr. Weaver, has made it clear that he wants to stop and redesign the library and event center project. This is a political move. It is reckless, irresponsible, and a non-starter. How do you throw away $5 million and end up with a better result? You don't. Let me point out some things about the library project that some voters aren't aware of, and I appreciate that. On March 15, 2016, the voters approved a $30 million bond referendum. On December 6, 2016, the courts validated the bonds for construction of the project in MLK Park, specifically. In July of 2017, the city sold the bonds in the public market, authorized by the voters and validated by the court. In 2018, we all started paying back the bonds. In September of this past year, we approved the final conditional use of the project designed as approved by the City Commission. This is over, folks. The voters voted and the courts ruled. Mr. Weaver is proposing a restart and a redesign. This is simply unacceptable. Staff estimates the minimum cost of a project restart and redesign at $5 million in wasted taxpayer funds, and to further delay the start of the project by at least a year. If you think we have issues now, a restart and redesign will cause even more financial costs, delays, and legal actions will probably show up, compelling the city to uphold the will of the voters and the court. All of this is totally unacceptable. It's time for every Winter Park resident to get behind the library and event center project to serve current and future generations of Winter Park residents. Thank you.
Mr. Weaver.
Thank you. I voted for the library bond referendum, and I've always supported the lifelong learning mission of the library. But the AJ design cost outstrips the $30 million budget by 30%, and you can't shrink that project proportionally. We need a restart and a new design. I am not alone here. Other architects, engineers, and builders saw it right away, but our voices were ignored. The cost and the budget are not aligned. We are told the project is not over budget, but the fact is there's no budget until there's a final design. The voters are not getting what they voted for. For example, the bond referendum promised us a parking structure, not an expanse of asphalt. I don't think voters knew we would lose more than 60 trees in Martin Luther King Park. I had a privately funded plan to transplant some of the best live oaks, but again, the city ignored the proposal and the chainsaws have already started. It was a mistake to sell a bowling alley. Citizens and city staff pleaded with the commission to hold on to the property until we had a final design for the canopy, but Commissioner Weldon insisted the property was not a good value and the property was quickly sold. If the library is to succeed, we need competent, knowledgeable leadership to create an environment for its success.
Ms. Chandler.
Voters of Winter Park voted on the library, and I have accepted that vote. Like everything else, it's important that we learn to live within our budget. I've spoken to several different people around that project, around the library, including City Hall, and I am scheduled to meet with City Manager Randy Knight in the next couple of days, I think tomorrow actually. I've been assured that the library can be built within the budget. We will have to make some hard decisions about the construction and about the building and around the entire project. I'm running to make sure that all Winter Park citizens have better access to City Hall and the decisions that they make. If our citizens have better access, they're happier with the outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For my final moderator question, for which you each get 2 minutes, this time Ms. Chandler's going to go first, Mr. Weaver second, and Mr. Weldon third. And this is the question. Traffic, congestion, and parking, the devil's holy trinity. Describe the root causes of this perceived crisis and what solutions the city might have control over as we look at remedies.
Traffic, what do you say? That's one of those subjects that traffic is a daily reminder that's a reminder that overdevelopment can harm the quality of our lives. Current mapping, navigation technology, it reroutes congested traffic areas and it brings them into our residential neighborhoods. And it's going to do so as traffic worsens. The city should act now to create a traffic controls that reduce or restrict commuter traffic flow into Winter Park neighborhoods during peak hours. Our city should also consider reintroducing the city shuttle that connects residents to, and not tourists, I want to be specific, residents to Winter Park neighborhoods and senior centers to Park Avenue and other key retail, Winter Park retail stores, medical centers. This service could be provided or funded in partnership with retail and medical stakeholders to provide safe, convenient transportation to Winter Park families, or for Winter Park families. This would especially benefit young people and seniors who feel locked into their neighborhoods due to safety concerns caused by traffic congestion. Thank you.
You guys are fast. I appreciate it.
One thing I've learned in my 30 years as an engineer is you can't solve a problem until you recognize that one exists. The incumbent has been known to refer to complaints about traffic congestion as politically motivated badgering and ranting. I often feel like a traffic hostage as I drive through the city, and I bet you do too. The mobility of our citizens must be tackled long before we introduced increased density development or on any of our major corridors. I've been on the League of Women Voters Transportation Committee, and I'm actively working with state and local transportation officials to find solutions to this problem. I refuse to accept that we are a victim because of our location in a high-growth region. Our quality of life and our property values depend on our ability to find intelligent 21st century solutions.
Mr. Weldon?
Yes, a few things about traffic. One, I voted to approve $150,000 in technology that is yet to be implemented to do signal processing of the signals between Phelps and St. Andrews Boulevard on Aloma to try to ameliorate some of the problems there at rush hour. That project has not gotten underway because some of the realities that face us with the fact that the Florida Department of Transportation controls Aloma, and they have different interests than we do. We can't force them to do anything. We can negotiate with them, and I continue to work with the city management and staff to try to get leverage on FDOT on certain things. One of the things I'm working on now is trying to get the timing of the light at Fairbanks and Denning fixed because it's backing up heading south during rush hour. The frustration we all feel, is related to the fact that 40,000 cars a day go down Fairbanks and Aloma, go down Lee Road, as well as 1792. I don't know what the percentage is. Probably 70% of this traffic has nothing to do with the city of Winter Park, and there's nothing we can do about the growth around us. What we can do is manage the growth in Winter Park, and that's part of my history. It's part of my platform moving forward. I got rid of R4 high-density apartment zonings exactly to restrict the population in Winter Park. And that will help concentrate the value among our single-family neighborhoods. So I believe that our challenge is keeping Winter Park the oasis that it is, while we try to manage with FDOT, Orange County, and Orlando to manage the regional transportation problems that we have no direct control over.
Thank you. We're now going to go to the first audience question, and based on the stack of index cards I have so far, I'm going to ask you all to keep your responses to 1 minute instead of 1:30. But you guys have been doing a great job in holding to the time. First question from the audience, and this one, Mr. Weaver will go first, Ms. Chandler second, and Mr. Weldon third. Did I do that right? No, I did not do that right. You're second, I'm sorry.
I'm second?
Yeah. I
I went last night.
Okay, I'm going to keep you last this time because my numbers are off and I can't fix it that fast.
I just picked an order.
What will be the two most important budget issues this year? Mr. Weaver.
Well, by far the library budget is my biggest concern. Right now it's $10 million over budget, although the mayor and Commissioner Weldon will tell you that it's on budget. The truth of the matter is the $30 million will build two shells, and it's like buying a tire. The salesman tells you it costs $100, but all of a sudden you can't use that tire until you mount it, balance it, put a valve stem in it, and it probably needs an alignment. So you end up with a $170 check. So all the add-ons, and this is straight from the city manager, 2 full sheets. And if you look at the bottom line here, it's an extra $10 million. It's $9,326,000 with no funding. So what that means is you're on the hook for another $10 million that you didn't vote for. We have no funding source for it, and the way it'll happen is through chicanery of accounting.
Wow. You'll forgive me if I try to rebut that as quickly as I can to go on to answer the question. Mr. Weaver hasn't been fully informed on this subject. I refer you to the memo of February 14th from City Manager Randy Knight. I encourage you to ask him for a copy of it along with the backup material so you can understand the facts. With regard to the two biggest budget issues facing us coming up this year, the first one is, as I mentioned earlier, the opportunity to free up $2 million more in cash from the electric company to accelerate undergrounding. That's a huge opportunity that will be available to us beginning January 1. The other opportunities range only in terms of what we as a community want to invest in. Our tax base is strong. The CRA funding is strong. We have many opportunities, and I want to hear from all the people in our community how they want us to reinvest further. We've got many things on the plate in terms of parks and other investments, but the sky's the limit for this city. It's in great shape, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities we have to further invest in the city.
Ms. Chandler?
The question is for me, okay. Around budget. Again, like I stated, thank you, Todd. Again, as I stated, this platform is different from many other platforms. So when we speak about budget, one of the things I would like to see is expanded citizens to the online meetings. Currently, right now, there is only one camera, and I don't know about anyone else, but not necessarily do you get a good reading or a good view of what's going on. I think a placement of multiple inexpensive cameras in every commission and board meetings expands citizens' access to city government and via recorded live feeds. Currently, only one camera is used during commission meetings and none are used at board meetings. So that's something I think we can probably fix really quickly. Thank you.
Okay. This time, Mr. Weldon, you're first, Mr. Weaver second, and Ms. Chandler, you're third. Do you support backyard chickens in Winter Park? And why? Or why not?
This issue came up in my first month, I think, as a city commissioner 3 years ago, and there was one family who was very much for this, and I respect that desire. I voted against it because the CDC, that is our federal government, has concluded that the available contamination from backyard chickens is a health risk. And on that basis, I don't think anyone in Winter Park wants to pursue it, and neither do I.
Mr. Weaver?
Well, this is another place where we contrast. I am against having roosters in the backyard because no one wants that alarm clock at 4:30 in the morning. I'm usually up by that time, but my neighbors usually aren't. So I would vote no on roosters, but I would, if the citizens wanted chickens in their backyard, hens, who doesn't like grade AAA eggs first thing in the morning? They're great for pest control. It's been done in Maitland without any problems, and I would not have any problems with my neighbors having chicken. The CDC, you'd have to have quite a few chickens before it would become a health hazard, so I'm not buying that, sorry.
All of a sudden, the traffic question seems easier.
How true.
Chickens in the backyard. Growing up in the Virgin Islands, I would go to my aunt's house and she had chickens. So, chickens in the backyard, I believe everything should be done responsibly. I am not familiar with the process of what happens when chickens are in the backyard and you have neighbors and I'm not familiar with the process. I think it should be done responsibly. I'm hoping that the person who is chickening is doing it responsibly for all the neighbors, for their neighbors, as well as for the communities. So, chickens in the backyard.
Okay, Ms. Chandler, you get to go first this time. Mr. Weldon, you're second, and Mr. Weaver, you're third. How should we deal with the poor condition of the Lake Baldwin Dog Park as reported in the Parks Master Plan?
The Lake Baldwin Dog Park, I'm familiar with it. I have a good friend. We exercise together, and she's like, Barbara, let's go for a walk, and we take her dog, Lexi. Again, this is one of those areas. My platform, again, speaks to access, but I realize that this is very important for a lot of people, especially my good friend Mila, who I walk with. So we want to do the right thing. I always say we want to do the right thing, if it can be done that is appeasing to everyone, again, we're talking about the quality of our lives in Winter Park, and how it's done. Of course, we want to plan, make a plan for it, keep it accessible, and fix the problem, fix the problem.
Is it me or?
No, Mr. Weldon.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I've been out there recently talking with some of my friends who are involved in the Friends of Lake Baldwin Park organization, and I reviewed some of the things in the parks plan suggestions. They really don't have a great desire or need to, quote, improve the park. The only practical thing we could do is to cordon off a section of the park and let it grow back in terms of the grass. But within a month of having pulled the fence down, it would still be mostly, dirt. Now, this is a regional park, and one of the things I'm going to do when you re-elect me is speak with Orlando about their share of responsibility for the maintenance of this park, because most of the people who visit the park aren't from Winter Park. And I think they'll be open to that, and I look forward to seeing what they're willing to do in cooperation with the city to improve it. And I am totally in support of the open access to the park for dogs.
Mr. Weaver.
Well, I'm the proud owner of 2 rescue dogs, and my girlfriend has 2 as well, and she has this very feisty Staffordshire Terrier mix called Royce, and a lot of you know about Royce, and we take him to the dog park often. Back in 2010, when I was on the Lakes Board, I went there often because there were complaints about the health of the lake being affected by feces and runoff. At the time, though, we had a berm all along the shoreline, so runoff from rainstorms was not an issue. Well, now that berm is gone, and the lawn is pretty much dirt. There's some holes in it, and I think the park needs some maintenance and care, but since Mr. Weldon's been on the commission, the park's maintenance budget has been divided in half. We're still checking the math on that to see why, but that's the reality of it.
I'll put some documentation on that time.
We'll hunt it down.
Please do.
For this next question, Mr. Weldon's first.
Yes.
Mr. Weaver's second, and Ms. Chandler is third. Please discuss how ethnic diversity in city leadership would affect the city, and what would be the best way of achieving it.
I think Ms. Chandler is the example case. I thank her for standing up and speaking for a community that she represents, as well as all the people in Winter Park. I grew up in the 1960s, and I believe deeply in Martin Luther King's values, that it's not the color of your skin, it's what's in your character that counts. And I think Barbara sets a good example. We need more people of all faiths, colors, religions, backgrounds, whatever, participating constructively in the city of Winter Park. And that's the way to build community, is to invite everyone to participate.
Mr. Weaver?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Please discuss how ethnic diversity in city leadership would affect the city, and what would be the best way of achieving it.
Well, we are a melting pot in the United States, and Winter Park's a good example of that. And like Mr. Weldon said, we've been lacking in representation from the west side, and we have many people of many faiths here, many ages, and it seems like just the same age group of folks from the center of town get on commissions. I'm from the far west side, and I would be the first on the commission from anywhere outside of the central area of Winter Park. And I'll try to blend that diversity in city government the best I can.
Come Tuesday, March the 12th, You check Barbara, and we're on our way. Access. Diversity is access. Diversity in leadership shows access. If the community is reflective, if the community leadership is reflective of the citizens through the people of a diverse board, different opinions, there's sensitivity in every area, so we want to know that we are addressing those. So it's through access. It's removing barriers that people, such as myself, people of color or any other minority group, feel that they may not have access to. Open the doors to those. Make sure that you are working with the people within the community and receiving guidance in that way, or receiving information. I think, like I said, having access. Thank you.
On this question, Mr. Weaver is first, Ms. Chandler is second, and Mr. Walden is third. What are your thoughts on historic preservation in Winter Park?
Well, Mr. Weldon keeps claiming that he's incentivized historic preservation. I'm a proponent and would not support a high threshold nor a low threshold for historic districts. But right now we have 11 homes in Winter Park that are still standing. 10 of them are on the register that are 100 years old. There was a big building boom in the 1920s, and by 1927 we'll have 300 100-year-old homes here. And we really need some real incentives, and we'll talk about that when I'm on the commission. But right now, the number of homes that have been put on the register since Mr. Weldon's been in office has dropped precipitously because the incentives just aren't there.
Historic preservation. Again, like I've stated and will continue to state, my overall platform is around access. This is one of those areas that we all are aware of, that the historic Hannibal Square has been through changes. I think through historic preservation, again, being responsible, being informed, having access, I think this is where these conversations begin to come out of. This is where these dialogues, these exchanges, there are solutions. There are solutions to these issues such as historic preservations. And once elected, I'm willing to sit there and go through some positive, effective solutions. Thank you.
Yes, I'm not associated with a reduction in the number of historic homes. I'm associated with encouraging people to volunteer their homes for historic designation. I'm also associated with a policy that was a first for Winter Park that was put into place after I joined the commission that helps those on the west side. 2 houses have been renovated with the benefit of the support from the city that I put into the budget with the agreement of my fellow commissioners, where we match up to $25,000 of renovation investments in historic properties in Winter Park. And we've had 2 results so far over the past 2 years, and they're both excellent. And I look forward to that project being expanded and encouraging more people to volunteer their properties.
On this question, Ms. Chandler's first, Mr. Walden second, and Mr. Weaver is third. Will you vote to fund more money for road repairs and/or hire a traffic engineer? The list is long for street repairs. Why or why not?
Okay, so the question is, would I vote to support it? Again, I always come back to access. Pardon me. I think planning, being informed, having a plan on how we can better our streets, better our roads, better the traffic, showing that plan, being very transparent with the residents and the citizens of Winter Park on how we can do it, how much it will cost, making sure that everyone is a part of the conversation. I don't think this is one of those things that can be done overnight, but what we can do is start to have the conversation, start to be more inclusive. One of the things on my platform is to develop a neighborhood advisory board, and on that board, or in that, one of the people from the communities should be able to sit around that subject.
Yes, the city routinely budgets 7 miles of road repair and replacement every year. I have not heard any complaints from any residents in my 10 years of service on the city that indicate that that 7-mile-a-year plan is not sufficient. To the extent that you want to speak up and say, hey, my road's not the way it should be, send a letter to the city commissioners and the city manager. We will get it addressed. I have not had a single query on that subject in all my years serving the city. I, of course, want the best roads in our city, and we can afford it, and we should have them. The more opportunities that are demonstrated to me as your commissioner, the more money we can allocate.
Well, by the way, we have a traffic engineer. His name is Don Marcotte. He was formerly our stormwater manager and engineer. And so we have to fund everything that we do in the city. And right now, the library budget has the potential, the library cost has the potential of cutting every single city service because of this huge overrun. And that means the roads and roads repair may be affected by this disastrous project. That's all I'm going to say on the subject.
Okay. This time, Mr. Weldon, you're first, Mr. Weaver second, and Ms. Chandler's third. For the past 2 years, funds for affordable housing have been cut. These funds help Habitat for Humanity and the Animal Square Land Trust. Winter Park has started its own land trust just for green space. When will low-income people be able to receive the benefits of affordable housing funds?
Yes, first of all, Mr. Weaver's comments about the library, again, are just ridiculous, and I got to point that out and use strong language. Nobody in their right mind on the commission would vote general fund dollars to the library and event center project. It's just not going to happen. To the question of affordable housing, the city of Winter Park has been exceedingly generous over the years. We have purchased and donated, I think, 43 lots to Habitat for Humanity. There continue to be opportunities when they come up to buy lots for that same purpose. We work with Hal George on that routinely in terms of looking for opportunities. The city invested $1 million in the land trust a number of years ago, and the land trust is turning over houses. The other aspects of affordable housing have to do with the federal government and HUD giving money to the states, which gives money to the County Housing Authority, which gives money to the Winter Park Housing Authority.
Okay, Mr. Weaver.
Well, we do have a problem with escalating real estate prices here in Winter Park, and this is a tough subject, especially on the west side. A developer especially comes in and offers somebody $500,000 for a lot, I'd have a tough time turning that down. So I am encouraged, though. Zane Williams, one of our local